Hello everyone and welcome to a new video on my YouTube channel, Anton GF. My name is Anton Garcia Fernandez and I'm talking to you from Martin in the state of Tennessee in the United States of America. And today I'm going to be talking about an album that I've had for a long time on vinyl, but I've never had it on CD until now, when very recently the good folks from Sepia Records over in the United Kingdom have reissued it on CD with some extra tracks and some fantastic sound. I'm talking about this Bing Crosby album that I have in my hand right here called Holiday in Europe, which Bing Crosby released in 1962 on the Decca label. It really is a fantastic album, and it's one of Bing's lesser-known outings from the early 1960s. Holiday in Europe. Well, when we talk about concept albums, we usually think of Frank Sinatra and the fine records that he made on Capitol in the 1950s and 60s, albums like Only the Lonely and The Wee Small Hours or Songs for Swinging Lovers. But actually, concept albums around that time in the 1950s were ubiquitous in both pop and jazz. And of course, Bing recorded quite a few of these albums. For example, Le Bing, which is an album of songs sung in French. Songs I Wish I Had Sung the First Time Around, which pays tribute to some of Bing Crosby's influences and some of his friends as well, and people that got around to recording songs before he did, songs that he wished that he had introduced. Fancy Meeting You Here and That Traveling 2-Beat, those great collaborations with Rosemary Clooney and the great arranger Billy May, among several other concept albums that he recorded throughout his career. And one of the lesser known ones is this one right here, Holiday in Europe, that has been reissued by Sepia Records not too long ago. It was recorded in 1961 and released in the year of 1962. By that time, Bing Crosby had been freelancing for a while and had complete control of his projects. I'm talking about artistic control, also about economic control. He was leasing the masters to different record labels, and so he wasn't really committed to one single record label at the time. This album, Holiday in Europe, was recorded for Bing's own project label originally, but it was eventually released on Decca Records. And the arrangements are by Bob Thompson, a California-based arranger that really does a fairly good job on most of the tracks on here, most of the 12 tracks that make up the album. When we compare Sinatra's concept albums with Crosby's concept albums, we see that Sinatra's albums, the concept albums that he did, they seek to create a certain mood and sustain that mood throughout the album. But Bing's concept albums are more thematic. Not to say that some of Sinatra's concept albums were not thematic, but all of Bing Crosby's concept albums are built around a certain theme. Holiday in Europe, for example, is strung together by its travel theme, like the concepts that he did with Rosemary Clooney, that Traveling 2-Beat and Fancy Meeting You Here, and also Frank Sinatra's Come Fly With Me, in which he collaborated with Billy May. That was also a concept album that was strung together around the topic of traveling around the world. In this case, in the case of Holiday in Europe, the idea is to put together 12 songs that were linked by their European theme. Not just traveling around Europe, but also the songs have to do with places in Europe. And most of them were even written by European composers or had been hits for European singers before Bing Crosby took notice of them and included them in this album. The original liner notes of the album make the concept very clear. They say, "In this, an enchanting musical holiday in Europe, Bing sings a collection of songs from or about some of the places that hold special rank in his memories, and where we are certain he's quite well remembered himself." Of course, from the days of World War II, Bing Crosby had always had an enormous interest in Europe, particularly in the British Isles, where he had many fans. In fact, if you read the second installment of the Bing Crosby biography by Gary Gittins, Swinging on a Star, The War Years, that has been published not too long ago, you will find a lot of information about these years of World War II and Bing's involvement with the war effort, and also his frequent visits to Europe during that time. In Europe, Bing Crosby also had a very big presence before, during, and after World War II, but especially during World War II, when he was entertaining the troops, making broadcasts, and many, many other things. Just read that book and you'll find all the information that you need about those years, and then some. He also enjoyed playing golf in England and Scotland and Wales, and he actually passed away in 1977 while playing golf near Madrid in Spain. Of course, as we said, he had recorded an album of French songs. Throughout his career, he would record many Irish flavor tunes, so his connection with Europe was very close. However, for a holiday in Europe, Bing is going to stay away from the British Isles and is going to concentrate on continental Europe, what the Brits themselves call the continent. It's a trip throughout the European continent, through continental Europe. This musical journey throughout Europe takes him to several countries and includes many songs that were current hits by artists from these countries. We're going to go country by country. We're not going to go chronologically, so to speak, as far as the track listing of the album goes, but we're going to go take a little trek country by country, starting with Portugal. April in Portugal is the song from Portugal that Bing sings in here, and it is a classic of Portuguese fado music, originally entitled Coimbra. It was written by Raul Ferrão, and it has English lyrics by Jimmy Kennedy. Fado is a very melancholy kind of music, full of longing and yearning, and melancholy about the past and the way things used to be. But this melancholy sound of the original Coimbra, the Portuguese song, is here replaced by a tango beat. The tune had charted in the U.S. by many artists, among them Les Baxter, Freddie Martin, and Vic Damone. And I absolutely love the version that Bing Crosby does here. It's actually the song that opens the album. Then we move on to France. Bing Crosby loved France. He also loved the music of France. And, he had done that album in French, Le Bing, in which he sings in French actually quite well. He had a certain love for the music that was produced in France. And we can see this in Holiday in Europe because there are 5 songs that were originally in French or written in French or that had been hits for French singers. One of them, probably the most popular of them, is C'est si bon. The second song here, C'est si bon, or It's So Good in English. Bing really does a fine interpretation of this French classic that is usually associated with the great singer and actor Yves Montand. It has been covered in English by a myriad of singers, including Dean Martin, for example, that has a really good version of this tune, C'est si bon, but many other people recorded it. Bing Crosby felt a certain connection with the song, and it's very clear that he's having a good time singing this song on Holiday in Europe. We also have Under Paris Skies, or in French, Sous le ciel de Paris, under the sky of Paris. This had been recorded in French by many, many singers, including the great Edith Piaf, and Andy Williams sang it in English, among many others. The arrangement here is full of the sound of the French musette, that kind of French accordion, which I think works really well in this song, and Bing sounds really inspired by the arrangement and by the melody of this beautiful song, Under Paris Skies. And then after that, we have Pigalle, which is a song that was almost 20 years old when Bing recorded it. It had been written around 1944 and had been covered in English by Johnny Desmond. Johnny Desmond, who used to sing with the Glenn Miller Orchestra, and he also made some fine Records under his own name after he quit the Glenn Miller Orchestra. And actually, Johnny Desmond Swings is a great album from the 1950s. That did not include Pigalle. Johnny Desmond recorded Pigalle before that. And he also had a good version of it. The song talks about the famous tourist district of Pigalle in Paris, and Bing really delivers the song in the most convincing way. It compares really well with, very favorably, with the Johnny Desmond version of the song, which is the other one that comes readily to mind. We also have Two Shadows on the Sand, in French called Le Mur, meaning the wall. It is a slow, pensive ballad, an early song by the French singer and songwriter Gilbert Bécaud, who would go on to have dozens and dozens of hits in French, among them a song called Et Maintenant, which Sinatra and Elvis Presley and many singers would record in English as What Now, My Love. This song, Two Shadows on the Sand, is perfect for Bing's voice, and he does a fantastic job with it, in my opinion. Finally, we have Melancholy, which is a melancholic song, as the title clearly implies, written not by a Frenchman, but by the multi-talented Swiss artist Pierre Dudin, who's not very well known, but he wrote this song, and Bing Crosby liked the tune and saw it fit to include it in this album. And in fact, it's a melancholic song that serves as the album closer. We begin in Portugal. We take a trip through France and also Switzerland with this Melancholy, and then we move on to Greece. There's a song called Never on Sunday, the theme song of the 1960 movie of the same title, Never on Sunday, starring Jules Dessin and Melina Mercouri. The tune had charted for Don Costa in the United States as an instrumental, and would be subsequently covered by several artists after Billy Town added English lyrics. The problem is that these English lyrics are not very inspired, in my opinion. The lyrics are rather dull, and Bing does what he can with this Greek-flavored song with very, I think, uninspired lyrics in English. From Greece, we stay in the Mediterranean and we move to Italy. Bing includes three rather recent Italian songs. One of them is More and More Amor. It's even hard to say. It had been sung in Italian as Quan vien la sera, which means something like something along the lines of When Evening Comes. And it had been sung by Joe Sentieri in the 1960 Sanremo Festival. Of course, that was one of the most important song contests around that time to showcase new pop songs in Italy. And this is a good song, even though I'm not a big fan of the English lyrics by Dick Manning, but I like the staccato arrangement that is quite attractive here. I think it's one of those arrangements that work pretty well among the ones that Bob Thompson wrote for this album. The next one's one of my favorites, Domenica, which it really has a longer title in Italian. Domenica è sempre domenica, which means Sunday is always Sunday. This is an excellent tune that had been a big hit in Italy for Mario Riva as the theme song for the popular TV game show Il Musiciere, which was actually hosted by Mario Riva himself. Bing is really enjoying himself with this song, I think, and he seems to really have liked the tune since he actually contributed some of the English lyrics to it. The third song that comes from Italy is one that is known as either A Letter to Pinocchio or My Heart Still Hears the Music. This is a children's song written by Mario Panzeri. It had been a recent hit for the Italian singer Johnny Dorelli. Not very well known these days, but a big hit. This Johnny Dorelli back in the 50s and 60s in Italy. It seems like an odd choice for this album because it's a children's song, but Bing sings it in a very lovingly way, and he takes it at a very slow pace that works really well for this kind of song. 3 songs from Italy, and after that we move on to Germany and a song called Morgen, which means tomorrow. A 1959 hit by Ivo Robic, also known as One More Sunrise. It could also mean morning, actually, the word in German, Morgen. The English lyrics are by Noel Sherman, and Bing actually uses this song to close the first side of the album. We've talked about 5 different countries so far, and there's a 6th one, and that one is Spain. But it's a strange situation with Spain in this case, because it is surprising that Bing did not choose a pop song that was currently a hit in Spain, or even a song written by a Spanish songwriter. In this case, when it comes to visiting Spain, the place where he actually would meet his death after a round of golf near Madrid, Bing turns to a tune written by Bob Thompson himself, surprisingly. It's one called Moment in Madrid, a rather obscure song whose only relation to the country of Spain is the fact that the name of the capital city, Madrid, is in the title. The great jazz vibraphone player, Carl Jader, also included this selection in his 1960 album, Concert on the Campus. But other than the Bing Crosby version and the Jader version, I really haven't found any other versions of this song. I'm not saying there aren't any, I just have not found any others. It's an odd choice, though, because, as I said, it was written by Bob Thompson. There are many Spanish songs that Bing could have gone for, but he decided not to do that, and he recorded this song, Moment in Madrid. I wonder if, as a favor to the arranger, or maybe it's just that he really liked this song. Bing Crosby did not sing with the orchestra, the instrumental, at the same time in the studio, but the instrumental tracks were laid down in London by an orchestra led by Malcolm Lockyer, whose name, by the way, doesn't appear on the original cover of the album. Bing had tried his hand at some of the songs in London in October of 1960, but he wasn't satisfied with the results, and so he redid them in Hollywood over the course of 2 sessions in May of 1961. Even though he did not record the album together with the orchestra, as I say, the results are still fresh, they sound good, and it's very difficult to tell that Bing actually overdubbed the vocals. He does a really good job on this album, although it's probably not one of the best-known albums that he made. However, the reception of the album was quite enthusiastic. Variety and Billboard generally praised the CD, and Bing himself, what's more important is that Bing himself, in a personal letter, seems to be very pleased with their results. He says Holiday in Europe is also doing quite well. The success that these 2 albums, he's talking in the letter about Holiday in Europe and also an album called I Wish You a Merry Christmas, the success that these 2 albums have met with has been very encouraging to me. It's been a long time since I've had anything that has done so well. So he seems rather pleased with the album, and I think he's right in being pleased with it, because it's really a really interesting album from my point of view. Prior to this release by Sepia Records that I have in my hand right here, Holiday in Europe was only available on CD as a Japanese import. And of course, that's the reason why I didn't have it. It was hard to find here in the United States. It was quite expensive if you could get your hands on a copy online. And so that's why I only had the vinyl version of this album. But this Sepia release right here is most welcome because it has perfect sound. It has been expanded with other travel themed tunes, songs like Hawaiian Paradise, The Belle of Barcelona, Along the Way to Waikiki, which, by the way, comes from the album Bing with a Beat. Songs like Let's Sing Like a Dixieland Band with Louis Armstrong, Paris Holiday with Bob Hope, Around the World, which is a great song that Sinatra also included in Come Fly With Me, but that Bing Crosby had also recorded for Decca. So, this is why the album says Holiday in Europe and Beyond, because this CD includes more than the album. It includes some bonus tracks. It also includes pictures, very informative liner notes by Christopher Popa, and even features a rehearsal version of C'est Bon. In all, there's 26 tracks on here. The last one is that rehearsal track of C'est Bon. And thanks to the fine people at Sepia Records, now every Bing Crosby fan can have a good, affordable, great sounding copy of Holiday in Europe on his or her shelf. And that is really good. That's something that we should really praise this British reissue label for, because they've done a great job reissuing some great material, pop and jazz material from the past, and also concentrating on several albums that are hard to find and that in some cases had not been reissued on CD since they had first been issued on vinyl. This is not the case. As I said, there was a Japanese edition, but it was hard to find on CD, and this is an absolutely fantastic album that I recommend everyone out there. If you're interested in good pop music, if you're a Bing Crosby fan, you definitely have to have this album. So thank you, Sepia Records, for doing an outstanding job as usual, and I recommend that anyone who is watching this video and listening to me talk about Holiday in Europe, you should go out and find a copy of this fantastic CD from Sepia Records. Bing Crosby, Holiday in Europe and Beyond. Must have for any self-respecting Bing Crosby fan. I'm so happy to have it, and happy to be able to talk about it on this video on my YouTube channel, Anton GF. We come to the end of the video now, reminding you that anywhere where you can get your music, you'll be able to find the CD, Bing Crosby, Holiday in Europe and Beyond. The copyright of this video is mine, Anton Garcia Fernandez. The year that this was recorded is 2019, and this video has been recorded live in Martin, in the state of Tennessee, in the United States of America, and you can watch it on my YouTube channel, Anton GF. Thank you very much for your interest. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, leave them underneath the video, and as always, I hope you find some time to enjoy the wonderful music of the one and only Bing Crosby. Thank you, and so long, everybody.